We gather this morning to honor Mathias Craig, class of 1996, raise your hand, as the 2018 recipient of the John Dreyfus Distinguished Alum Award. So who are the players up here and what are they going to do? You've already met Mathias, today's honoree. You're going to learn a lot more about him shortly. To my right, your left, the left of the podium, Dan Kunkel, raise your hand please. Head of school at Midland School from 1990 to 2000. Next to Dan, Lacey Goddard, who needs no introduction to some of you, but Lacey has been on the faculty at Midland since 2003 and is currently Dean of Studies. Next to Lacey, Hillary Pfeiffer, Mathias' stepsister, class of 1985, which is an extraordinary group of people. If you see people with an 85 on their little name tag, find out more about that class. It's quite an interesting group. Over here, to my far left, on the far right of the stage, Jim Dreyfus, class of 1982, a friend of mine. Jim is not only an alumnus, but a current parent and trustee. And almost finally, Christopher Barnes, head of school at Midland School. Only person who hasn't raised his hand yet, so you know. I am John Martin. I am president of the Midland Alumni Association and past parent and current member of the Board of Trustees. So now you know who everyone is. What are we going to do? And how long will it take? In less than an hour, Jim is going to explain the award and its significance, which is named for his father. Dan, Lacey, and Hillary are going to help us understand why Mathias is the person being recognized with this award this year. Christopher and I will make the actual presentation of the award, shake hands, photo op, all that kind of stuff. Most importantly, Mathias is going to share some of his ideas, experiences, and insights with us. His story combines stewardship, which we talk about a lot, entrepreneurship, engineering, and impressive action in a very Midland way, and I think you will love it. So my job here is nearly finished, but I forgot one important set of explanation: your roles. So parents, how many parents are here? Raise your hands, please. Okay, parents, meeting alumni such as Mathias should help you assuage those middle of the night worries when you're thinking, what have I done? Where have I sent my child? What will become of her? How will she ever grow up out there with the horses and so on? It happens. Alumni, you already know that you are part of a unique group, and this award and this honoree points out just how unusual and high impact Midland alumni can be in the world. Faculty, how many faculty members are here this morning? It's almost May. You're tired. Your vision is on graduation. You may be feeling fatigued. It's not in vain. You're going to see why. Students, 10, 20, or more years from now, you may be the recipient of the John Dreyfus Award. Start now doing the work that will bring it home. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome to the podium my friend Jim Dreyfus.
Good morning, everybody. So, my dad was on the 5-year plan at Midland. He enjoyed the 10th grade so much that he did it twice. He graduated in 1953. He was a faculty member, trustee, parent, and grandparent. He fell in love with the headmaster's daughter and married her, Kit Dreyfus, who's in the audience today. He died unexpectedly from complications after a burst appendix while serving as a trustee on the Midland board in 2004. The board was very kind to name the Distinguished Alumni Award after Dad. When the board decided to name the award, they wrote in a letter to Mom, "We believe the best way to demonstrate that the standard we expect for recipients of this award is to name it in honor of one who is a clean example of everything we want to celebrate and recognize." Wow, it doesn't get much better than that, and it leaves a high mark for us all to live up to. I thought I'd let you know a little bit about Dad from his own words. So from his pen to your ears. Things I don't like. Bullies. Being abandoned by good friends for stupid reasons has only happened once. Liars. People who break promises. Hypocrisy. Being shined on, which is a form of hypocrisy. I'd rather just deal with bad news. Being ignored. Defeatism. People who interrupt. Multitasking when I have to, because I'm bad at it. Things I do like. Friends, especially long-term friends. People, that sounds corny, but it's true. I just like people, even some who I'm not particularly fond of. Beauty, both physical and intellectual. Loyalty, considerate people. People unafraid to admit vulnerability, good listeners, patience. Sometimes I don't have enough. Irony, because it abuses me, I'm not sure why. Decisiveness, generosity, exercise, cycling, beyond the exercise part. Dad had a great sense of humor. Perhaps that humor got him the second try of the 10th grade. He collected and told jokes and would send them to his friends regularly. He always tried to connect with servers at restaurants to make their experience with him a happy one. He was curious, smart, frugal, generous, and hardworking. I know that Dad would have invested the time to get to know Mathias, and I'm sure they would have become friends. Dad would be thrilled to know that Mathias is being recognized today for his great work.
Again, thank you, Jim. And you described the John Dreyfus that I knew, and it was so helpful to Kathy and me during our 10 years here at Gould. Just a brief flashback. I don't want to take up too much time, but John brought a bunch of alums up here the summer after, I think, of our first year, and they built the loading dock, the dock that runs along the back of Stillman here. I haven't gone to look, but I think it's still the same loading dock, and that may seem like a trivial thing to some of you, but what that allowed is that allowed us to stop having big semi-trailers full of food come in and back and turn here in the yard right during the class day in order to deliver food. It really made a huge difference, and it was the beginning of a long relationship with John. And Kit, welcome this morning. I also want to take a moment to welcome Mathias' father, William Craig, and his esteemed son, Damien, both of whom are sitting up front. It's great to have you here. Kathy and I love coming back to Midland. It's been a little bit too long. We've skipped a couple years, but it's a special honor to come back and help to introduce Mathias Craig, who was a very special and great student during our time here, graduate of the class of 1996. Mathias came to Gould, actually to Midland, excuse me, I gotta get my school straight. He came to Midland as a junior, and it would have been the fall of 1994, and immediately just excelled at everything. I think that the record says during his time here, he took 10 semesters of advanced placement courses and was recognized by the AP program as a scholar. He was a high honors student. I don't know whether that designation still exists here or not, but he was a high honors student his whole way through. At the end of his junior year, he won the Heyman Memorial Language Prize, very gifted at languages. He sang in the chorus. He was a solo pianist in the arts outreach contest that occurs here in the Valley. I solicited, because my memory traces are getting a little bit old, I solicited some help from a couple other people, and of course Ian Cummings immediately chimed in on the athletic side of things and reminded me that Mathias was an outstanding soccer player, and maybe the most important thing that gets said today is that he scored with a header the winning point against the Kate school, and it's the only time in my 10 years that we beat Kate at anything. Just a great moment. Ian also pointed out that Mathias was an avid chess player, and maybe there was some chess playing that went on out in the back country. I'm not sure. Ian and I decided, I think it was the spring of '95, to lead a backpacking trip to Thatcher to recreate an old tradition. We didn't understand two things. One was that the old trip to Thatcher used to be on horseback, not backpacking. It's 90 miles through some of the most rugged hiking terrain you could imagine anywhere. And the thing that I didn't realize, having grown up in the East and so forth, I was thinking, oh, well, Southern California and it's March, what could be better than that? Well, to get going to Thatcher, you have to, you go up over this ridge that you can see here, but there's another ridge behind it that's about 7,000 feet above sea level. And once you get up there in March, you might as well be in New Hampshire. And we got up there, and Mathias was a stalwart member of that crew. We got up there, and either the second or third morning we woke up surrounded by a foot of snow. And you just can't backpack through a foot of snow very easily. So we managed to make our way over, into Ventura County, into what's called the Dick Smith Wilderness, and to a cabin that we knew existed over there that the Forest Service maintained and that people could use. And we got to this cabin and stayed there for a couple days to try it, hoping that the snow would melt or something so that we could get out of there. And we had a great time, all kinds of great discussion around the campfire and so forth. And Mathias was a central part of that, particularly with his dry wit, which inspired all of us. His dry wit also came in handy as he was the freshman prefect his senior year, along with Peter Cushing, and that we should have put a warning sign up there about the amount of dry wit that existed around that cabin. I don't know what happened to the freshmen who were in that class, whether any of them survived or not, but great year, great guys. I also contacted Eric Niles, who taught history here and was and is now the head of school up at Athenian School, and he remarked on what an accomplished writer and thinker Mathias was in his history classes here, and how much he admires everything. He sends his regards to you and his admiration for what you've done, Mathias, to help make the world a better place. I discovered, I also taught calculus to Mathias, and I think our classroom was right in here in Stillman. I like to teach around tables rather than with students in desks, so we taught in here, and the only disadvantage to teaching in here was around the middle of the class, the smells of lunch being prepared would come out into the classroom, be somewhat distracting, but at any rate, Mathias was the kind of student that makes you feel great as a teacher because he immediately understood everything, and of course as a teacher you think, wow, I must be a fantastic teacher. But it was really the mind that was on the receiving end that was so great. And a comment that I made in the comments that December after the exam was that Mathias he had a textbook performance on the exam, and I also read that I'd never seen a clearer, more controlled command of ideas, and that certainly has held true. That's just a little tapestry of the experience that we had with Mathias here at Midland, and it was indeed wonderful. And then he went on, of course, to get his bachelor's degree at Berkeley, master's at MIT, And the great part of the MIT story, if I have it right, is that Mathias won an entrepreneurship award at MIT, which became the genesis of some of the work that he did back then with small-scale wind energy and taking that technology to poor communities that were off the grid in Central America, and in particular Nicaragua. So that whole outreach got going then. And I know that former recipients of this award who were environmental scientists who were heroes of mine, Barry Schuyler and Mason Woolridge, would be very happy to have Mathias join their ranks for just that reason. And I know that John Dreyfus would be so pleased by this choice of the award recipient today. This man has gone on to do many other things. My job was to talk about things he did at Midland, so I'm going to stop at this point, and I could go on for a long time, but I am going to stop and I'm going to introduce Lucy Goddard.
Mathias Craig is a bold, confident man, one who not only looks at the future of humanity with optimism, but one who thinks it is normal to give a group of 10th graders, sophomores, a book of engineer's instructions, a 4 or 5 foot long redwood board, a set of sharp, precision-made hand tools for woodworking, and says, okay, we're going to turn these boards into airplane wings. And this is one of the windmill blades that was carved by sophomores at Midland. He then proceeds to lead our sophomores how to turn these things into beautiful engineered wings. It's been a joy and privilege to work with Mathias Craig for several years as he has brought his multidimensional wisdom to Midland sophomores. Trained as an engineer, Mathias came out of Berkeley and MIT ready to solve problems and to build things, and of course was going to save the world by using his engineering background to bring clean water and electricity to communities without either on the rural Caribbean coast of Nicaragua, a place near and dear to his heart after spending childhood summers there with his mom, who was a linguist working in remote Nicaraguan communities. But first, back to these boards. For a decade and a half, Midland sophomores have been building Midland's renewable energy infrastructure, one solar array at a time, taking out another 3% of Midland's electricity needs each year. At this point, around 40% of Midland's communal electricity needs are met by solar arrays installed by our 10th graders. Several years ago, Mathias Craig came on board during our sophomore experiential weeks to broaden our perspective on renewable energy and to bring wind into the mix, and then biogas digesters with one of his colleagues, Christian Casillas, and that's another story. How lucky were we? Midland 10th graders and faculty were met by the team from Mathias's organization, Blue Energy, who had also given similar workshops to engineering graduate students at Berkeley and Stanford. And Mathias always told us that our students had more stamina and work ethics than the ones from Stanford and Cal. He's the ones from Cal. Mathias shared stories not only from the engineering front on how to leverage renewable energy systems to meet communities' needs for clean water and light, but how to work within communities to make sure that the indigenous peasant cultures on the remote Caribbean coast of Nicaragua and several other countries in the world served by Blue Energy, including Ethiopia, needed and wanted this technology and were trained to install and maintain it themselves. To give a sense of the scale of Mathias's influence on Midland youth, I can say with a high degree of confidence that he changed the course of the life of one of our youngest and brightest. So you have to try to imagine the sounds and the sawdust that would have come out of what looked like Santa's workshop for windmill builders on the high, long work tables in the barn. Saws cutting through redwood, hammers on chisels, planers of various sizes, some for one hand, some for two hands, sandpaper smoothing the edges. It was the hammers, right at belly height, tapping for hours at a time. And Ashley Ninos was pregnant. And I kept thinking, Ashley, these noises might be too much for your little one. But no, she stayed strong, working right alongside the students. And the next September, young Finley Ninos came into this world with an indescribable, insatiable interest in fans. When you think about it, look an awful lot like little windmills. He always carried a motorized fan around, talked to anyone he could about his fans, studied them, took them apart, including this one, thank you, Ashley, put them back together, mimicked their sounds, showed all signs of being on his way towards becoming an engineer of things that spin, to move air, provide lift, and make fabulous whirring noises. All this is to say that the effect that Mathias and his crew from Blue Energy has had on our sophomores over the past several years has been inspiring. He's helped them realize that carving wooden blades and hand building electric generators using powerful magnets and precisely turned copper coils is something they can do. He also helped them realize that engineering and building are only part of the story. The other part, the majority in fact, comes from understanding, listening to, empathizing with, and empowering local communities to design, build, and maintain the systems themselves. As a faculty member, it was instructive for me to watch Mathias's leadership style with his team, which included Andreas, Christian, Lindsay, and eventually Jamie Saborer, class of '96, the funnest, wildest, most hilarious of the lot. Every morning after eating and raving about an enormous Gloria breakfast, he greeted everyone with a big smile, a huge smile. Nothing ever rattled Mathias. The Blue Energy team had regular team meetings to talk through how the workshop was going and made adjustments in time frame and expectations. Always these meetings seemed to take place on the field with these engineers throwing around a frisbee. Always. It was fascinating to watch. There was always a sense of play to their work. Mathias has given Midland students and faculty a window into his world. A few years ago, he was invited to be the Mason Wilrich speaker on global environmental issues at Midland, further helping us understand the value and challenges of bringing clean water, light, and renewable energy to the developing world. You see, Mathias's approach is all about working within and giving back to communities. He moves between people and groups with ease. I asked our resident anthropologist, Paul Gellis, to share his perspective on Mathias's brilliance. And Paul gave me some language to better describe how rare and special Mathias is in his sensitivity to local cultures. Paul says that Mathias is truly a cultural broker. He understands that for development to succeed, it has to go through local institutions with respect for local cultures. He taps into local community organizations that help meet the needs of its citizens. With these hard lessons learned, Mathias has turned his field sites into training grounds for future global leaders so that they can combine both technical and cultural approaches to meeting communities' basic needs. Does this sound a little like Midland? The mission statement from Blue Energy's website is, Blue Energy delivers energy, water, and sanitation to some of the world's most isolated, marginalized communities, providing a foundation for health, education, and economic opportunity within the context of changing climate. Our community-based work provides an immersive, enriching learning platform for future global leaders interested in energy, water, climate change, and international development. Mathias himself frames it around the essential questions asked at and by Midland. These questions are, how much is enough? And what does it mean to live the good life? What does that look like? Students and alums, take note here. There is a defining and crystallizing role that your Midland education can play as you ask the question that can lead to meaningful work. I learned that this was the question from Bob Gillespie, class of '57, when he was given this award 11 years ago in one of the most moving moments I have ever seen play out in Stony Forge. The question is, what am I meant to do with my life? What skills do I inherently possess, and can I more fully develop through rigorous training and through the dailiness of life to do something of use? Mathias' path and his story are certainly a worthy example and case study. He has the courage to take on big challenges, to assemble a multinational team around him, to listen, to share his insights, to find that none of the original plans worked the way he thought as an engineer they would, to listen more and to change course, taking stock of the most important lesson and strategy of all, to build trust and to build community. It is our honor at Midland School to give this award to Mathias, and it is my honor to introduce our next speaker. Originally, it was going to be this larger-than-life, forever sophomore boy character, Jamie Sabor, Mathias' best friend and classmate, and it turns out it is going to be someone even better, Mathias' sister, Hillary Pfeiffer.
Last time I talked from the stage, I cried. That's who I am. I'm a happy crier. So bear with me. Here we go. Thank you. I don't know if I could fill Jamie's shoes exactly, but I'm really honored to congratulate you to get this award because as an alumna, I know how important this place is. I love Midland. It definitely built who I am, and I think about it all the time, even if I don't come back on a regular basis. But Mathias is 11 years younger than me, and I was really honored to be the one who got to bring him, to show him Midland the first time. It wasn't a parent, it was me, and I was such a recent graduate that, you know, I still had teachers that I was friends with, and so when he was doing here, I was staying with, you know, kind of rekindling my roots, and you know, we did a little bit of hiking. I think maybe we tried to see the Ferris wheel on Michael Jackson's ranch, and you know, so it was, you know, kind of nice to bring somebody, to shepherd somebody else from the family in. I was asked to kind of fill in the gaps about Mathias, about character rather than accomplishments and time at Midland, since I wasn't here at the same time. So what that made me think about was just the big picture about Mathias, because with the exception of one other person in this area, his father, William, there's only two of us who knew what he was like before Midland. Like his son, Damien, Mathias was a curious kid. He was really gregarious. He was, you know, easy to make friends, easy to get along with pretty much anybody. Smart, kind, and always willing to help. One of the things that our family does as a group on a regular basis on holidays or anytime there's a need to celebrate, we love to have any excuse to party. And basically what we do primarily is we all cook a large meal together. We, you know, have a multi-course. Usually we all learn from about another part of the world through the way that we choose the menu, or just go back to things we love. And but we all prepare. We'll spend, it's not uncommon to spend a full afternoon or even a full day making a meal, sitting down, enjoying it together, and then cleaning up as a group. And you know, to me, that's a perfect precursor to what happens here. It's a very similar kind of way that everybody works together to make a big idea happen. The Mathias who I saw, who emerged after going through this 2 years experience that he had here, had the same core ethics. At UC Berkeley, I watched him kind of turn it into amazing social events for his co-op. And at MIT, I think he was a little more focused on what was going to happen afterwards. And Blue Energy began immediately after he graduated. And I really felt that he brought the family values and the values of Midland together in Blue Energy. And most of all, I just love having this connection with you about Midland, because it's so important to me, and it's like, you did it so excellently. And the way you've come back and helped future Midland generations is also admirable. and I hope to learn more from you. So, I love you. Congratulations.
It is my and our great honor to present you with the John Dreyfus Distinguished Alumni Award. Thank you for all that you've done for the school, and thank you so much. Thank you.
I've always wanted a fan. You know, it's always a pleasure to be back on campus. Primarily the people, the place. Midland is one of the most beautiful places in the world. If you're a student, you'll come to recognize that the farther and farther you are away from it. And the food. Especially as I've been back in the last few years, it has been a real treat to be taken so well care of every time we come on campus. And you also appreciate that more and more the farther you are away from your time here. I want to thank John, Martin, for pulling this all together. Bob Gillespie for believing in me and for originally nominating me. Katrine McKiernan, who was nearly a classmate of mine. She was one class behind, but she was very instrumental in all of this. And it's been a pleasure to reconnect with her over the phone. She's living in Hong Kong, couldn't make it today. Dan, still very hard for me to call you Dan, Mr. Kunkel. Thank you so much for traveling so far and being here for this. Lisi, thank you for being the bridge really over the last 2 years, connecting with you and the Grahams, and Paul and Phil, Johnny, and everybody else who's made it feel the welcoming place so many years after. And Trace and Chris, thank you for welcoming me again in this new era under your new leadership. It's really great to be here. And thank you all for saying so many totally exaggerated things about me. I really appreciate it. It makes me feel good. As the world changes ever more rapidly around us, I think Midland really stands out as an anchor of core values. Dan, you said something yesterday that really stuck with me, that you think about your core values, you fight for that, and you're willing to sacrifice everything else in service of that. And that means we change with the times. You know, structures change, some norms change, but the fundamentals, the core values, remain the same. And I think Midland represents that better than anything else I've seen in my life. And as it becomes so much more valuable as the world becomes more rapidly changing. And what I've learned is that you can always come home here. There's an expression that says you can never come home because it's different. But because of that rooting in core values, every time I meet new faculty. I met faculty when I was here for workshops that weren't teaching here when I was a student. But there was an immediate connection. There's a community identity and something that is self-perpetuating and repeats itself here. And coming back over the years, you know, I have found nourishment for my body, for my mind, and my soul. It's very rejuvenating to come here and work with the students, meet the new faculty, and be in this wonderful place. I graduated on the stage 22 years ago, which for me is impossible to believe. I don't know where 22 years have gone. My father, who's here with us today, stood right here and reminded us in our commencement speech about the importance of having balance in life, as he held up a soccer ball and a book. The importance of finding joy in the work that you do and working hard at the same time. It's the best advice that I'm still trying to live up to. I've spent the last 14 years working to support healthy families and resilient communities through community engagement, energy, water, sanitation, and food solutions. With Blue Energy, we focused on Nicaragua, which is the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And in recent years, we've begun work in Ethiopia. We've worked with over 50,000 people in the last 14 years. And what I have learned primarily is that while technology is an important part of what we do, it's only a small part of what we do. That's what I've tried to emphasize when we've done workshops here, which were hands-on technical experiences. But the primary value of the work that we do and the experiences we've had is understanding that it's really about the people, it's about the culture, it's about the politics, it's about the supply chain, it's all these other things. And it's very tempting to think that a widget, some sort of technology intervention, is going to magically solve a community's water needs, a community's energy needs, or any other challenge that they're facing. You have to have technology that works. If at the end of the day you install a water filter that doesn't filter water, that hasn't helped anybody. But learning about and investing in all the other steps that it takes to actually achieve an impact over time, that has been my greatest learning. And what I found is that it's the same recipe for success that's here in Midland. Build community, invest in place, and trust the process. It's the same. There's no easy way to do what it is that we do. And what we do is not a particularly popular way of doing community development work. I've learned many times since my time here that what is popular is not the same thing as what is right. And as a society, and increasingly as a world that becomes more obsessed with quick fix solutions, we have a challenge there. That a lot of times doing things the right way is countercultural. And I think you have a tremendous asset in Midland that understands that. Midland is countercultural compared to what is popular out there. And doing things the Midland way, having students be involved, taking the time to do things right, is an invaluable lesson, and you have a community here that will support you in that when you leave here. And that is absolutely critical. In addition to my work with Blue Energy, I've had the opportunity in the last couple of years to consult with some other organizations in the social sector in supporting their strategic planning processes. This has opened my eyes to the broader social and environmental movements that we are a part of. And I can see more clearly now the common challenges and opportunities we have for collaboration. The challenges of our time call for new approaches while holding on to the same core values. I don't yet know where this will lead for me, for Blue Energy, and for the movements as a whole, but I'm very excited for the journey. Doing what I do has required the support of so many people, and I won't mention all of them, but just a few. I want to thank my mother and my father for investing in my education, for always being an ear of support. For my kids, Damien and Amora, for reminding me every day, all day, why this work is so important. I want to thank Lorelei, my wife, who has allowed us to live very well, to have a very comfortable life while being out on the edge doing this kind of work. And finally, Blue Energy. This is a team effort. This is an individual award, but all of the work of Blue Energy is done by an incredible team. They hardly let me do anything anymore anyways. They don't let me in the shop. They don't let me install anything. So we've worked very hard to build a management team that can take on these tasks. And if you've been following in the news in the last couple weeks about what's going on in Nicaragua, it's a tremendous period of upheaval and change, and we're all hoping for a peaceful resolution that will be to the benefit of the Nicaraguan people in the near term. So if you want to join me in doing some deep, meaningful work, give to the Midland Annual Fund first, and give generously. And once you've done that, come speak with me. Thank you.
I'm glad to be my daddy's son.
So, the John Dreyfus Distinguished Alumni Award is a recognition of an alum who truly lives their education and leverages the lessons they learn here and goes out there in the world and makes it a better place. The mission Midland School provides a unique college preparatory boarding school experience to a diverse student body. Through study and work, it teaches the value of a lifetime of learning, self-reliance, simplicity, responsibility to community and the environment, and the love for the outdoors. So we're a school, so maybe we ought to grade Mathias and see how he did. So let's see. Has Mathias lived his education? College prep. Well, he got into UC Berkeley and went to MIT. I think we'd call that good. And Blue Energy's international efforts demonstrate a vision that expands beyond the horizons of this community and this country, building on our values of diversity and inclusion through work and study. My favorite part of the mission. Blue Energy's work is an exemplar of what happens when you work hard to utilize what you have learned for the common good. Additionally, the company itself promotes self-reliance, role models simplicity, and fosters communities to take on responsibility for their own healthy prosperity. And all of it in a context of sustainable energy, with an eye towards the social changes required to uphold our common values, right? And leaving a place a little bit better than you found it, including the planet Earth. Mathias, it's been a pleasure for all of us to bear witness today to a very well-earned award and to celebrate your contributions to the world and to this community. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all for joining us and celebrating today. Have a great afternoon.